Now we get on to the second episode. And the second episode, wow. Now, you know, this definitely feels more like what should have been a premiere than what the last episode did. Because of what goes on in it. So obviously Barry starts to do this thing where he can actually think faster and solve problems more, and there's this moment where there's 3 boards and it's dead funny. It's a good moment, and it's a very good episode. But they start the episode with obviously the sort of memorial for Nash, and we're in this room, and I have to talk about this room for a moment. We're in this room where there's stuff in there to sort of like, you know, memorials to all these superheroes. And you see in the background there's stuff for Robbie Amell's character, which Ronnie, his suit is their Firestorm suit, the original one that they had. And we get some stuff from some other characters in the background. But the key part that I want to point out, and it's a part that actually another YouTuber actually made me think about, when I initially saw, because we actually get XS's suit in there as well, but there's also another suit. Now, when I first saw it, I thought it was Trajectories. My mind didn't straight away go to Jesse Quick, but of course Jesse Quick does make sense for what this room is. And, you know, why is Jesse Quick's costume in there? She's not dead. Now, is this because of Crisis? Do they know that all the Earths were destroyed and they think they're the only Earth? And maybe they've done their research and there is no Earth out there that this Earth does not have a Jesse Quick, and so they've put the suit that they got, or they've remade the suit in the sizes and everything, and put it aside to make a point that, you know, we've lost her. Or is there something else here? Is it possible that because of Crisis there's something else that's gone on? Because obviously the Zoom storyline also has changed, because Barry, there was an episode last season where Barry showed his electric lightning, you know, the electric throw, the lightning throw, sorry, and, you know, we got the information from that moment that Barry did not learn that from Zoom. He learned that from Eobard Thawne, or something else. You know, there's definitely something else going on, and is it possible that Zoom hasn't actually appeared yet in the series? For this Earth Prime, because obviously Oliver was the one that reset the Earth Prime, but is it possible that he didn't have enough information and to actually make sure that any villains that have popped up before won't pop up again, so they're where they should be? That could be a possibility, because obviously it's the same with Superman and Lois. So much is going on, but we're not really getting into why so much is going on that are related to alternate universes, like Captain Luther. Where's he come from in Superman and Lois? But anyway, moving on. And yeah, Barry starts to get this sort of thing. There's a nice little scene with Joe and Barry, as we always like these scenes with Joe and Barry. This little scene with Joe and Barry obviously shows them talking. They're talking about the fact that Barry always relies on his art, and that maybe that's not such a good thing. But obviously later on, we find out that actually it is a big thing, and he needs to keep that heart. So yeah, he starts doing this brain thinking, this really fast thinking thing, which is pretty cool. It would be so awesome to do. And you know, he brings out the boards, tries to explain how he's going to get Iris out. They come up with a plan, and we get Caitlin back, Killer Frost. Well, Frost at this point. And this scene, so they figure out a way to get these particles, again, more particles, from Eva McCulloch, because she used Bloodworks blood initially to open up this mirror universe. So, obviously they have to do the same thing to try and get Iris out, but they can't go back to Bloodwork. Now, is that, again, something to do with Crisis, or is that something else? Is that something unrelated? I guess, again, we'll find out about that later on in the series, if he pops up again. Anyway, moving on. So, yeah, they start to do this, and things start to feel a little bit off with Barry. So they use the tachyon device but they reprogram it so it picks up all these particles when McCulloch uses her powers. They use Caitlin / Frost to distract McCulloch. But in the moment, there's a moment where like McCulloch gets her upper hand on Frost, and it's like, Barry, go. And he doesn't go. But obviously it's because he's seen the outcome, and it's because the Tachyon device would have been destroyed in that moment. And there was he said there's a 0.0002% chance that that could be destroyed. That could succeed, and he wasn't going to risk it. So obviously this is where we start to realise that there's something going on with Barry. So yeah, we're back at the base, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to work it, and they figure it out. And then, of course, we get this whole thing with Eva McCulloch. She's doing an interview for somebody saying that she's back to work and she's going to do some good for the city and all this, which is perfectly fine. Makes you actually kind of like this character for a split second. But then Barry thinks it's a good idea to display this video that Eva is not Eva. She's a mirror image of Eva, just like Iris was. So they send that out, and she's pissed. Now, that's pretty much it for the meanwhile from what we get from that character. So then we move on. Barry's got this idea, but he's having issues, so he runs it by Gideon. And it's decided that only one or only two of them can come through. Now, because Camilla and Singh haven't been in there long enough, they can come through together. But Iris, because she's been in there longer and she's got more of these, particles all around her, they can't actually bring all three of them back. And Barry goes through this sort of like That's So Raven thing. There's a That's So Raven sort of comparison in this episode, because we get Barry sort of see the future to a certain extent because of his brain thing. He just sort of tells him every single way certain things go, and and Barry sees how things go with the voting thing, and they all vote against Barry, and that's when he realises, okay, well, I'm just going to do it my way and do it on my own to try and bring Iris back. And they do try and bring Iris back. Now, something that happened earlier on in in this episode was the quantum ball, which is unpredictable. And Barry was really, Barry was able to catch it, know exactly where it was, and it was a pretty cool moment. But this actually comes back to bite the Team Flash in the arse in a bit. But, so, yeah, Cisco finds out that Barry's only going to bring Iris back. So, Cisco goes and shoots the artificial intelligence sphere thing that's still going. It's still on the move. And then we get Caitlin and we get Allegra. This is obviously earlier. That was earlier on this point. We get Caitlin and Allegra. There's a fight. It's Team Flash versus the Flash. Something that we never thought we'd ever see, but we're seeing it right now. And the Flash really does struggle for a moment, but then the Flash gets the upper hand. Allegra and Cisco are down for a moment, and one of the coolest moments in this whole series, Frost injects herself with Velocity X, and she is now Speedster Frost. Speedy Frost. And it's so cool to see she's got the blue lightning. Sort of the aesthetics to the cold thing, it's obviously blue because she's cold and cold is blue. Anyway, and they have this epic fight scene, but of course eventually that runs out. But it's quite cool to see Snow's powers, Frost's powers, mixed in with Barry's powers. It's quite interesting to see, and it's really well written. It's not cringy, it's not cheesy, it's just straight to the point. She needs it just to try and beat Barry, because she doesn't, and this is why I mentioned that quantum ball, because said quantum ball actually comes to bite them in the ass again. And Barry said, you lost this fight even before you started. And that ball comes and hits all three of them. They all sort of knock each other out to a certain extent. But Barry brings Iris back. She's not happy about it. And Iris collapses when she actually goes down. Now, at this point, Barry seems to get his heart back for us. Just, he's still got the brain thinking. He's still got that fast thinking. But the fast thought, speed of thought thing. But there's definitely something that affects him. And it's something that needs to be pointed out. That, Barry does come back to a certain extent. And he's there and he sees Iris on the floor. She's completely gone. She's shaking like a nutter. And Barry looks around the room. He destroys the artificial speed force. I always go to say artificial intelligence, thanks to Doctor Who. But it's the artificial speed force. So yeah, Barry destroys that. And you see the blue lightning actually come out of Barry. So now Barry hasn't got his powers. Surely that hasn't just taken out the brain thought thing. But, we'll have to... Again, this is something where we have to find out. And then it's... This episode is never ending. So that moment is over. We then hit the police station. And... so I might mix these two up, these next two. So apologise for that. But we then hit the police station. And there's one of the police officers, the police woman. And she actually gets taken through the mirror. Now, actually thinking about this now, the next scene is what was before because it sort of sets it up a little bit. The part that I actually thought this episode was going to end, but then it had two more endings tacked onto it, was where Eva McCulloch is completely messed up. She's going, this is not my world. This is not my world, And then she realises, but I can make it my world. Now, the next episode is the last for Eva McCulloch. It's the last of this story before we hit graphic novel number 3. And it actually works really well. I'm actually really happy with the way they do this. But obviously she's going to go and take that officer. And it's sort of... What I've gathered from the promo is that everyone she's starting to take now actually does become her. And whatever happens to them, happens to them. So, there's a bit in the promo where she almost gets Joe. And it's like, oh my God, please not the man Joe. Please no. But then we hit what is the actual ending of this episode. Now, it definitely feels like this episode had this ending tacked on because I believe this was meant to be the ending for the last episode of the season 6. But this was not meant to be the last episode of season 6. The next episode was meant to be the last of season 6. So this sort of gets tacked on to the end of this episode. I think it's because they start with the Nash Wells thing, and so they feel like it needs to end with the Nash Wells thing. But then everything else that happens, that's the reason why I think there's so many endings. I believe that the moment with the police officer was meant to be the initial last ending of the episode before we got to the next episode. But actually, this is tacked on. And oh my God, this is the biggest part of the whole episode. So we go back, and there's a title card saying Once Upon a Time, and we can hear it in the background. And there's Eobard Thawne and the original Harrison Wells. This is going back to like when Barry would have been about 7 or 8. And oh my God, what the hell's going on here? So we get that scene occur the exact same way we saw it originally when, Eobard Thawne turns into Harrison Wells and Harrison Wells is dead. But then we get to see that Harrison Wells buries the body, he puts the body into the plot, he runs fast, puts it over. Now, I'm assuming that the next part does occur in present day. But as we're zooming in, we start to see these green particles, very much like the Mirror Master sort of thing. It definitely reminds me of that, but I could be wrong. It could be something else. It could be other kind of particles. But these particles are starting to grow. But I think for some reason the universe seems to think that there has to be an Harrison Wells. Why? I don't know. Maybe that's a prior related thing, because the colour is actually reminiscent of Prior. Actually, yes. The colour does reminiscent of Prior, which was obviously Nash Wells at the time, but then was turned into Prior. Is that why? Is it sort of oh, okay. So, I'm sorry, this thought is only just coming to my head. But what if it's because of him becoming Prior that he has to be around? There has to be a version of Harrison Wells. It sort of creates a ripple effect, and that's why it's happening. I could be wrong. It could be completely something else, and I kind of hope it is, because if it is what I've just said it is, sorry for ruining it. But yeah, so obviously we get this, and Harrison Wells is back. The original Harrison Wells is alive and well. Now I have to point something else out that I have seen no other YouTuber point out, and I could be wrong at this point, and maybe there is a YouTuber you've seen. Please put it down in the comments if there is a YouTuber that you've seen that actually has put something in here about this. But you know, it looks like he actually kind of smirks a little bit at the end. Is this actually the original Harrison Wells, or is this a version of Reverse Flash again? Because I am assuming this is the Reverse Flash cliffhanger, and they've stuck it onto the end of this episode. But what the hell does that mean? Again, I could be looking into it too much, but he goes from sort of being like, oh my god, I'm alive, to smirking. And I've got to say, the smirking's not like, yeah, I'm alive. It's more of a, let's see what I can do now. That's what kind of smirk it is, and it really does kind of worry me a little bit. Wow. So, we are ending it here because I have got some editing to do. You know, so far, Season 7 of The Flash has really brought it. And yeah, we are full throttle into Season 7. And it's really nice to kind of get this sort of, these big episodes early on, which was originally meant to be Season 6, because it sort of feels more like something more's going on at the start of this season. But obviously, realistically, it's not the start of the season yet, to a certain extent. It is Season 7, Episode 1, it is Season 7, Episode 2, but it was meant to be Season 6, Episode 20, and Season 6, Episode 21, and the next one was meant to be 22, not Episode 3 of Season 7. Anyway, so yeah, my next video you'll be getting soon. It may be a gameplay, it may be the comics video that I have planned for you, which is recorded. That might be the next episode that you might get if this video is number 49, which I believe this is 48. Could be 47. I think this is 48 or 49. So you could be getting the comic books that I'm going to be showing you. But thanks for watching. Please do like on this video if you enjoyed it, and hit that like button. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, because I do appreciate it. I am at 12 subscribers at this point, and I would love to get a few more subscribers, you know, hopefully up that quality for you, to make some more and make better content for you. We are aiming for 100 videos by the end of the year, but we have not hit 50, and it's coming up to the end of March. So we're sort of the midpoint of March now. So, you know, if I can hit 50 by the end of March, then we are kicking in with 50 between March and December. You know, the Christmas video is going to be my 100th. Don't know what I'm going to do for it. So, yeah, that is it for today. And for today's videos, I will see you again in a few days' time for my next video. Again, not sure what it will be, but I've been Scrivo. This has been Scrivosphere, and I'll see you next time, folks.